feel free to help yourselves for that. A couple of our things is PASS is we don't have a huge source of funding. My role with FoxPass is our sponsor coordinator. So if you're part of an organization that would like to help support us, and maybe that we include their business information up on our website, and if they want to have someone come in and talk about their business a little bit, I know we've several times we have our contracting companies come in, do a little pitch, or somebody who uses a SQL tangent tool that they publish, come in and talk. But if your company wants to help sponsor us and continue with bringing all our tech needs and our food, talk to me at some point. Also, we'd like to take a little bit of time beforehand if you are looking or know a company who is looking for work to take a moment and share that. That way we become networking community. So if any of you know a company that is your company is looking, or you yourself are looking for a position. Okay, nothing at the moment. Last month we had a lot of chatter and talk about that. A couple other minor things. This is our last night at this location. Next month we are not meeting. It's because that's when SQL Summit is happening. SQL Summit out in Seattle. We'll have a slide on that. It's not too late to sign up for it if you're interested. And that will be in December. You're at our new location. When we send out our mailing for that, we are going to give GPS coordinates for it because it is a new building, and going to the address takes you to the Fox River Mall instead of the actual location. We'll try to get a couple pictures of the site up for you too, so it's a little bit easier to find, but we're just going to be sending out GPS coordinates in our next mailing for that. And we're going to go to our conventional past slide deck. Here we go, Summit right up front. That's next month, first week of November, and it is the best place to go, other than maybe if they get the SQL cruise going again, to network and communicate with some of the experts in the field. And they have a lot of presentations and tracks goes. If the conventional one is 3 days, but you can get a free con pass for 4 days as well out in Seattle. Tickets now are, I think, about $1,600. If you're prepared and ordering in advance, about a year out, 8 months to a year out, you can get them for around $800. Flight out there is only, I managed to snag my tickets for $200. It's a great opportunity though. And also, if you use our code, is that on the next page? Nope. All right. We have a code. Hopefully it's somewhere in our slide deck. No. And if you use our code to register, some of the funds come back to our local club and organization. That's probably about 30 to 40% of our funds every year comes from kickbacks from that. There is a past board of directors election. If anyone is interested in stepping up in a big way, feel free to talk to us about it afterwards. We've on occasion worked with some of the people on that board and can give you a little bit of an idea about what it entails. Okay, this is the online marathon, October 10th, so it's coming up just next week. It is, I think this is 24 hours of PASS, where they have different SQL topics streaming online all day for 24 hours. So if you get a break from work and want to hone up on your skills, it's an excellent opportunity. Here we go, there's our code. So that will save you money and also give a little bit back to your local organization.
We'll put this up on our website too.
And you can also get past swag if you're really dedicated. And I want to show you the graphic. All right, upcoming. This is just our virtual webinars. There's pretty much every day. If you're willing to look globally, we've got more SQL stuff going on that you can turn into. Probably just check out the PASS webpage and the virtual groups there. There are quite a few out there.
Keep going.
Yeah, just page 2, because this is just, these 3 slides are just over the next 10 days or so. So there are quite a few out there and constantly going on. And we should, in a slide or two, have our in-person seminars coming up. Yeah, this is just a slide of some of the dozens of different virtual chapters. And upcoming SQL Saturdays. Nothing super close. Denver isn't
We
too
got
far.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Where's the
October
there we
12th.
go. October. Wow, that's actually this month. I forgot Minnesota's. Okay.
It's not a state. It's the entire state.
And you can always, if you are looking to check out the past career page, there's always a handful of openings out there that are looking to support the organization. I think at that point puts us just about 5 after and ready to hand it off to the president.
Oh no. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. This is Bob Charapata and myself, Josh Lindbom. We're here to go over some Azure DevOps building and processing. We're happy that you could all make it tonight. A little bit of introduction about ourselves.
I'm Bob Charapata. I was a geek before it was cool. I say that now because I used to say I've been a developer for over 20 years, and I just don't want to say that anymore. So, geek before it was cool. I was farm by, that means I like to work hands-on with home improvement projects. Community involvement, I like working, I'm pretty heavily involved in Scouts BSA. They call that Scouts BSA now instead of Boy Scouts because they introduced the girls into the program as well. So very cool. So that's my 2 dogs down there. And I do like technology, which is why I'm doing it.
My name is Josh Lindbom. I love working in IT and learning about the newest technologies. Spending time with my family, and I'm a huge fan of 3D printing and playing Dungeons and Dragons. I also have been around working for Skyline for about a little over a year and a half. Loving every minute of it and ready to learn more and more. So with that, get right into it. There we go. So our goal tonight is we remove the difficult barriers to entry for automated build and release processes in Azure. We want to provide a working example of deploying a database project in a multi-tiered target environments. So with this, we wanted to have this main agenda of going over Azure DevOps, where we want to give you guys a brief overview. We want to go over the builds and runs. We want to do a demo, and we want to do a closing remarks. The majority of this time for this presentation, we're going to be showing you a demo. And afterwards, we'll have the YAML available for you to download, so you can actually recreate the demo that Bob and I are creating right now.
So DevOps versus Azure DevOps. So there's DevOps, the practice, and then there's Azure DevOps. And we want to make sure that we differentiate between the two so that we know exactly what we're going to be talking about today. DevOps, the practice, I searched a bunch of definitions online, and of course there's 100 million different definitions of what it is. So I tried to boil it down to the simplest thing that seemed to match everybody's definition out there. And that's development and operations teams working together during the entire project and maintenance lifecycle. Pretty simple, pretty wide definition. Azure DevOps is a technical framework to help facilitate the DevOps practice, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So for Azure DevOps, kind of a brief overview of the different capabilities that are in there. Number 1, there's the planning portion. It helps involving describing requests, describing projects, and the application systems and how they're built. This would be the DevOps project part, where you can set up your Scrum framework and things like that. We'll dive into that a little bit. There's a develop, where you can manage your code base using source control. There's two styles of source control in Azure DevOps. You can either have a Git repository or a TFVC repository. Deliver, this is where you take advantage of the meat of what we're going to be talking about today, where you have the pipelines, that's the build and the release pipelines in order to build your solutions and then deploy them out to different environments. And then operate, and this involves maintaining and monitoring and troubleshooting your applications. Go ahead. That boss is not going to be nice to you tonight.
It's not.
Continuous integration and continuous delivery, that's mostly what we are, like I said, focusing on tonight. When you're talking about CI/CD, the abbreviation that a lot of people use, we're talking about keying off of actions that happen in your source control. And typically what happens when you perform an action in source control where that line is being monitored or that branch, is it performs some sort of automated build off of the projects that are maintained in that branch. Finally, when those builds are completed, either they fail or they complete successfully, and they will create some sort of a build artifact that you can then use in order to deploy your solution. And that's where the automated deployments come in. Usually when those artifacts are placed out there and the build is complete, then depending on the way that you have your deployment set up, it'll either pick it up or it'll be gated in some way, or somebody has to manually accept it in order to proceed to deployment.
Right. As Bob was talking about, we're talking more of it here about the continuous integration and the continuous delivery. So with pipelines, builds, and releases, it all brings in all these things together. Helps you with setting up your environments, your pipelines, your runs, your stage, your steps, and your triggers. And in our demo, we're actually going to be demonstrating how you can actually set that up to trigger to have your changes go to production or go to a dev environment or a QA environment. So all this thing can actually be set up for everyone's unique environment. We're actually going to show a few different examples of how you can actually set that up right now, actually, in this next part of this demo. So right here for this demo, we set up 2 Azure VMs. We set up a dev environment, we set up a production environment, and we use the database for AdventureWorks 2017, I believe we used.
2017 DW.
Yep. So out here, we actually created our Azure DevOps ahead of time. So we actually went out here, created a project called Azure DevOps Demo. From here, you can see this little overview that we actually created. There's quite a few things that you can go within here. You can go over your summary, your dashboards. You can even set up some of your runs that you did for your builds or your releases. You can see your deployment statuses. You can also go down here to the wiki. So ahead of time, Bob and I actually created the boards. This is kind of where you can actually connect together, create a backlog, create a different sprint. And we actually went out here and created a bunch of tasks for us to actually complete for this. And as you can see here, I actually forgot to remove this over to done. This is for Azure DevOps Demo that we were working on. We wanted to check our build artifacts. So we can actually get this over in the close section. So you can actually go through here when we're working on whatever project you're working on for these stories and give yourselves different tasks that you're going to have to complete. So we just wanted to go over that just a little bit. From there, we go off to our repository.
In our repositories, like I said, there are 2 repositories that you can choose from. Now you aren't tied to a specific repository when you create a project. Josh, if you click up on the breadcrumb up there and you create a new repository, you can see first off that we have a Git repository that already exists. And it defaults to a Git repository, but if you pull down on that repository type, Josh, then you can see that there's also a TFVC repository that you can create. You can create any number of each of those repositories in any project, depending on the way that you want to work with your source control system. Our preference is to use Git, so we're going to move forward with a Git repository in this particular project. To close out of there. Inside of there, you can also perform commits, pushes. You can perform branch management. Just go to the branch management real quick there, Josh. In the branch management, what you can do is you can click on a particular branch, and in the ellipsis, kind of like right by the star there, you can set up some branch policies and a little bit of security. And what you can do there is make sure that people don't, maybe you want to make sure that people don't create branches right in line with the master line. Maybe you have a specific branch directory structure that you want to use, or that they're not able to push directly to the master. Maybe you want to use some sort of a gated check-in or pull request in order to facilitate that process. So that's where you would set those branch policies up. And then I'm just going to glaze over that because that isn't the focus of this presentation. But know that that is there. And if you guys do want to talk about that afterwards with me and Josh, that's fine. We also have our cards here. You can take them home and call us up if you want to talk Git. I'm pretty passionate about using Git as a version control system. So if you call me, be prepared to talk like 4 hours to a day. And pull requests, that's where when you're performing that kind of gated check-in, I call it a gated check-in because that's the old terminology, but really it's a pull request in Git. That's where you would set up that you want to merge a particular set of code into the master line that you would maybe monitoring or perform your builds. So I think that's it for repositories. We'll go on to pipelines. Okay, Josh, you want to start us out on this one?
Yeah, so right here, for our demo that we wanted to do is we're going to be creating a process in order for us to check in some database objects. So I'm going to be making some changes. I'm going to be creating and adding some new columns and creating a new table. So out here, we're actually going out here and we're going to be creating a brand new build. So you can actually go out here, use either import a pipeline that you have existing that you saved off, or you're going to be creating a new pipeline. So you're going to click here, new build pipeline. And right here, they're going to ask you where your code is. So as you can see here, there's quite a few different options that you can actually pick from. And the example that we're doing tonight is we're going to be going over Azure Repository Git, and we're going to be using YAML. So we click here, and we can actually see our Azure DevOps demo right here, our branch that we can get to. And you can configure your pipeline ahead of time. So it actually has a bunch of templates out here that you can use for your own whatever kind of pipeline you're working on. You can do a starter pipeline, you can do a .NET desktop, you can do an ASP.NET, you can do Android, Docker, HTML. There's a lot of different options out here. For our example that we're doing tonight, we're going to be using a universal Windows platform. I understand this is not a universal Windows platform app that we're deploying, but the main reason why we use this one is because of the variables it gives us when we actually click this template. So we're going to go out here, we're going to click this universal Windows platform. Now right here, it's generating the code that we'll have, this YAML. And you can see a lot of this information that we're going to be using. So we're going to be needing our solution, our build platform, our build configuration, our package directory, settings, all this information we're going to be using. So we are already going to cut down the time a little bit. Oh, and on top of that, there's also the assistant. So if you're out here and you want to actually add some other custom steps, so there could be different tasks. So one that we were actually working on, as soon as I go up to the top, you can search. I'm going to be looking for DACPAC. So right here, you can actually do a deployment to Azure SQL database using DACPAC. So you'll have to click wherever you are going to be last leaving off. So you want to go to the bottom of the line. You can click down here, and you actually put in all your information. So it'll help you if you don't understand YAML. So you can put in your Azure Resource Manager. You put in your subscription that we have here. Then you can put in your SQL Server authentication, your Azure SQL Server, and all your information down here. When you put it all in, it actually generates the code for you. So we actually have this generated ahead of time. So we're going to be bringing up the YAML that we already have actually generated for you guys. You don't have to waste the time. The YAML is actually available after this presentation that you can download. It'll be in a notepad on this meetup that you can download, and you can actually recreate this demo along with the recording of this video that you can follow along.
One thing I wanted to say about the assistant, you notice that when Josh did a search for DACPAC, it didn't say DACPAC build, it did say DACPAC deploy. Notice we are on the build pipeline. So typically you don't want to be putting your DACPAC deploy right in this pipeline. However, you can do that. We would not recommend it. We put it in there, did a test, actually did a full deployment right from the build pipeline. The disadvantages of doing something like that is if you have a successful build, but your deployments keep failing, then if you have it in the build pipeline, then you have to kick off another build in order for the automated deployments to occur. But by separating them out and having the build exclusively in this pipeline, and then having the releases, the deployments in the release pipeline, that allows you to have a build and you can release off of that build pipeline as many times as you want, X number of times. So having those things separate is a big advantage when you're talking about continuous integration, continuous deployment.
Great. So I'm going to go out to the one that we have generated now.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go back out to the pipelines. Ignore this, and I can actually go out here, and we already have one created and generated, so we can go out here, we can edit. So first part right here, you notice the trigger. We're going to be doing this based off of our master branch. And then we're also going out here, you can see our variables. We have our solution set up that we saw, the build platform, the build configuration that we're setting up. And then you also see down here, we have 2 steps here for the copy files.
Yeah. I was not a big fan of YAML before we started working with Azure DevOps. But once I noticed what you can do in here, one of the biggest things that I think is powerful is that when you create those variables on the top, that you can use them right in line with your code. It is straight code. You're not clicking all over the place in order to figure out what variable you have set, what it was named, in order to put it into something over here. So from a build perspective, it's very nice. But you can see some of the other tasks that we have in here. We have the VS build that actually performs the build, and that's using some of those configurations that Josh had pointed out, of the variables that Josh pointed out at the top. And a couple of the other things, and that really is the gamut of what was included with the template that Josh had created. However, remember when I said at the beginning that when we're done with the build, we've got to have those artifacts out there available for us to be able to deploy. Well, it doesn't just go into your bin directory or your OBJ directory and find those artifacts. You have to tell it where those artifacts are. And moreover, you want to make sure that you only get the artifacts that you want. I'm a big fan of clean deployments. So you don't want to have all of the DLLs and all the other files that go along with your build. So what we did was we actually did 2 copy files. And what we're doing is we're staging the files that were the output of the build into an artifacts directory by itself. So the top copy files at 1, all we're doing is we are reading from the source directory. We are grabbing the DAC pack contents. Now, if we have multiple databases, we're grabbing all of the DAC pack output from those database projects. And then the target folder, which is in the staging directory. Incidentally, this build artifact staging directory, the system default working directory, these are all built-in variables that are available to you inside of Azure DevOps. Another little tidbit I would like you to notice about this is, notice we put the path for the files that we're going to move to the artifacts directory right inside of our source folder. The reason that we did that is because if you put that path into your contents, it will verbatim create that path in your target folder. And so depending on how you want your artifacts directory structured, you don't want to have the path kind of mucking up the output that you have. I would say if you have, say, 50 different artifacts that you're going to get created from the build, it's probably a good idea to put some sort of directory structure there. Maybe have all of the stuff that's contained in a particular database project in one output directory, or maybe all the DAC pack files in another directory. Who knows? You structure it how you want. But what I would say is do put some sort of structure out there if you have a lot. Reason being is because when it comes to troubleshooting your builds and deployments, it's a lot easier to know where your files are and how many are supposed to be there versus just trying to hunt and peck in that line of 50 and trying to figure out where they go. Let me see, and then we have a second copy files task, that does much the same thing. And so what you can see from this is that our artifacts directory is actually very flat. We have 3 files, so there's really no reason to us to have overhead of all that structure. As you see when we do show you the artifacts, there's a little bit of digging into it, so it takes a little bit of time. If you have only 3 files, flat structure is good enough. All right, so now we have our files in the artifacts directory ready to be published. However, they're not yet available for our deployments. So they're just sitting there waiting, but they won't show up when your build is done. And so you do have to do this final step of publishing your build artifacts. And all that is saying, hey, with that artifacts directory that we specified up here, make sure that you publish it and name it that. And then it's available for you in your deployments.
We want to kick it off here, and we can go through.
Yeah,
Technically, we have it.
Yeah, so technically we have this working. What Josh is going to do before he clicks the run button is he's going to pull up, or at least have the YAML readily available, so we can see what it looks like in YAML form side by side with the build. So he'll click run, and then he'll go. What it'll do is it'll bring up the build. And so we're saying, yeah, we're going to build a master. Right now we haven't checked any change, but let's assume later that this is automated. That's how this is going to look. So what you'll see as this is starting up is, first of all, it's waiting for an agent job. And what we did with our demo here is we used a Azure agent in order to perform our build. And the reason that we did is because if you spun up a VM, now you're paying for this VM, and it's got to sit there, and it's got to wait, or you've got to wake it up in order for the build to occur, and then put it back to sleep when the build's done. When you use an Azure agent, that's all taken care of for you. So use an Azure agent, and it does take a few seconds to go ahead and initialize that agent, but then that build agent is now yours until your build is complete, and then when your build is done, then that agent then deallocates itself and it's readily available for the next time. So you can see now we're running through the steps, and you can see now a lot of the lines are matching up with the tasks that we have there. So we have the NuGet command. The tool installer was above it. We're now performing the VS build. We did the copy files already with published artifacts, and now we just have a couple of other steps in order to finish up the build. So that's all complete. So now that the build is done, if we go over to the artifacts, we can show you the artifacts directory. So now what Josh is looking at is the build artifacts for this particular build that's occurred. If we went back into history on that first screen that Josh showed you, there's tons of builds, and every single one of those builds has their own artifacts. In fact, if I went into some of our earlier builds, which I don't think we have anymore, Josh, you'll see some of the ways that we were playing with the artifacts directory. We didn't get it right the first time. But in this particular instance, you click artifacts, build artifacts is what we name that directory, and there we have all of our files sitting there ready for us to be available for us to perform our deployments. Anything else you want to add to this, Josh?
Nope, but there is another thing that also on the side here, you can even keep track of how long it takes. You can also look out here and actually see the results from based on every point that you're doing. So if you want to see where the actual location is, where it's going when you are doing a copy of the published profile, when you're doing a lot of trial and error and trying to figure out, okay, well, what's going on with my build? Why is it not successful? You can actually go out here and you can actually troubleshoot as to what's going on. We have actually a few. Do you want me to go look at some of the older ones that we actually have out there?
Well,
We
let's
have
see
some
what
of
we
theirs.
can find.
So if we go out here to some of our older runs for the builds, you can see we had a few ones down here that actually failed. So it gives you the option to actually look out here and see, okay, well, what actually happened? So you can actually troubleshoot, or it's successful, successful, successful. Okay, well, something happened here with our SQL Azure Backpack deployment. So you can be like, okay, well, what happened here? And it turns out, oh, okay, we forgot to change the setting when we were actually in our published profiles. Oh, that's our bad. So it's a really nice, easy tool that you can actually go out here and double check your builds to make sure that they're proper for being released down to dev, then eventually to production.
I have a question.
Yes.
The back-end build for this, it shows you kind of what looks like a terminal screen. Is that all PowerShell kind of on the back end, working behind the scenes to do everything?
I don't know.
Oh,
That's
okay.
a good question.
Okay.
I'll have to look into that, and then I'll get back to you on
Sure.
what the back end is.
Okay.
So from here, do you want to go to...
Actually, one more thing that I forgot to show them when we were creating our build. Go back into the editing of the build. One thing that we wanted to point out is right up here, you see in the breadcrumb on the top of the page, is what looks like a Git repository along with a file. So when you're making these changes without knowing it or without you having to perform the commit, it's actually checking these changes into the Git repository that you specified. As you set up your build pipeline, it'll ask you for a repository, and you can choose to have no repository if you want as well. But again, our preference is to have a repository. This is really nice because in a lot of build tools that I've used up until this point, there's been no way to grab that file and check it in with some sort of version control so you can retain change history. And in this situation, that's available to you. So it allows you to go back to maybe a previous working build as you continue to try out like 2, 3, 4 different things that you want to do, knowing that you have that safe place that you can always go back to, that you know that a particular object was built correctly.
From the default Windows YAML that was generated, what did you change? It looks like you did a copy and...
Yeah, so we ended up adding the copying is what we added in here for our actual task from the original. We ended up editing some of the variables that we had out here. That's what's kind of the default.
Xargs used to be in the VS build. We took that out. You don't need that for database deployments typically. So,
So not much.
not much.
There's not much.
And you can play with this. Like Josh says, we'll give you the YAML file when we're done. So you can absolutely go out to your instance, pull up the Windows, what was it called again?
The
Template.
Yeah,
Whatever it
universal deployment.
Yeah. And then compare this side by side just to see what has changed. It hasn't been a lot. And the other nice thing about this kind of a build is all of what you need in order to perform a DAC a database project build, is available to you right off the bat. We didn't install any special like DLLs or put files somewhere in order to have our build server ready to go. It was just there. So once we started with our database project, we were able to build it as soon as we put the configuration for the VS Code in there. That was nice.
Yes.
Can you schedule the run? So you don't have
Yeah,
Yeah, you can actually.
and then can you get alerts that it succeeded or failed?
Yeah, there are notifications on the build and the deployment, I believe.
Yep.
So there are options to do that. And in fact, if you browse that show assistant, that's probably your best friend at first, just to browse what are the different options that you can use as far as notifications, scheduling, in order to make sure that you can do what you want when you want.
And there's even more options too when you get into the pipelines releases. You can actually set it up to monitor, set out alerts, get pre-approvals before things actually get pushed to production or dev or other environments. So yeah, we'll be touching base on that pretty shortly though. And
Yeah. But for right now, the trigger that we have set in this one is a checking to the master line. So that way we're not building when there's no code changes at all. We're building when something does actually happen, when code changes.
Do you want to go over the releases?
I'm ready for releases.
Let's go over releases. All right, so for releases right here, I'm gonna just quick show you, just like on the builds. There's another drop down here again that you can actually create. We're gonna be creating a new release pipeline, or you can import one. We have one created here, but just to show how easy it is to actually create a brand new one, you're gonna go out here and it's gonna give you a bunch of different templates that you can actually use. So if you're using an Azure App Service, deploying Python app to Azure App Service, there's all these other options that you can actually use. Based on our example that we're doing today though, we're just gonna be using just an empty job. So we can select here, it's gonna create this new task right here for us. And I'm just gonna call this dev. We're gonna do a deployment down there, and I'm gonna click off here. Now from here, you can actually create an artifact that we're pulling from our previous build. We're actually gonna be pulling that in. From our Azure DevOps demo, we're gonna grab the latest version, and Azure DevOps demo down here for the source alias was automatically put in for it. There's other options. We can use Azure Repository GitHub, TFVC. So you can go down here, and I'm going to quick add this. So out here, you can actually have it. So it can be a continuous deployment trigger. You can have this enabled or disabled depending on where you're going to be deploying. So as soon as you check in a change, it's automatically going to then kick this off, or if you have a successful build. It's going to then kick this off and go automatically to dev if I have this part enabled. Or I can even set it up for a pull request trigger. So out here, you can actually go out to these tasks. You can set up so pre-deployment conditions. We'll be touching base on that on the example that we have already created. And then you can go out here and you can actually create these agent jobs. So you can run on agent. So you can go out here, you can do a bunch of different options for actual doing a job. You can go out here and add a task agent, and you have all these different options. So this is actually open to a marketplace. So you can actually go out here and we can do another search for a DAC pack. This marketplace here, this is for anyone to actually deploy and actually can create their own and put out here for anyone to grab. But as a warning, I would like to remind everyone to be careful because they're not vetted. It's similar to using Power BI, and we had Seth Bauer had a discussion with us. And there's actually an icon that lets you know that this has been vetted, this is okay, because he had an example where he had a client, he was using some sort of visual, and he thought it was the best visual ever. And he found out that that visual was actually sending all the data off to another company. So there's a lot of things that you need to be careful when you're using the marketplace. So definitely use your best judgment when you're going to be going through these. But there are ones out here already that are created from Microsoft that you can.
One thing to notice is on this particular pipeline, there's already an agent job there. And we talked about agent jobs and how using them allows you to have the flexibility of not having a VM and not having other resources already allocated in your Azure Marketplace, or sorry, your Azure portal, in order to save you resources and a little bit of money. However, there's the option for adding deployment groups, not here, but if you click, I think it's dev and that ellipsis, you can also add a deployment group or an agent list job. If you add a deployment group, what that's typically used for is if you have to deploy to multiple environments at the same time. And again, there you would have to set up your own VM in order to perform that deployment to that group. And then make sure that you have that ready to go and perform the deployment. I think there's too much else we've got to go through over here.
Do you want to go back to the one
Yeah,
that's
let's go to the
created?
pre-built one.
Yep. Go back out here.
It's really funny, Josh and I were rehearsing this, and we were both remote today. I'm telling him where to click, and he got really good at following my lead. He does better in person than he does when we're all virtual.
Yeah.
Like, no, click up there.
Right,
the
we're like
breadcrumb.
going through it.
No,
I'm like-
wrong breadcrumb.
Right. I'm like, what are you trying to show him? Use your words, Bob.
Just give it mouse control.
So in this particular one, we have, again, this Azure DevOps, and if you click on that lightning bolt on the top right there, Josh, you can talk about enabling this.
Yep, that's what I was just talking about before. So if we do have a successful build, so we had a successful build before. So now that we actually went through, showed the artifacts, showed the steps and how it runs through, I'm now going to be enabling this so that we can actually go through a database object change. So what I'm going to do is enable that. I can click off, I'm going to save. As you were asking before, Jeff, as well, you can actually go down here and you can set your schedules that you want this to actually set at a certain time to when you want it to actually get kicked off, so it's not running into anyone, or if you're going to have any changes out there that are going to be overlapping with anyone, or during business hours, you definitely don't want to be running over anyone out there. So right here, we actually can go back to the one job, one task that we created out here for dev. So
Before we go in there, can we go back out?
yeah, I can go back out to the pipeline.
Show them the prod.
Oh, you want to show the prod or pre? Yeah, right
Yeah,
here.
there you go.
So we want to go through the pre-deployment approvals. So this is what we were talking about before, where you want to make sure, oh, dev is fine, we can deploy to dev, we can go through QA, testing, everything like that. But you definitely don't want to do that to prod. You never want things just to go to prod without getting actual approval, testing. As we know, we're all very good at testing our code. So what we're going to do is we actually can go out here and actually do a pre-deployment approvals. So we're going to have that enabled. So we're going to have both myself and Bob out here that we can actually have this approved. So we can have the approval order in any way. So we can have it any order. We can have it in sequence, or we can have any one user. So you can have it so it's a sequence. So it's first, I got to go through Bob before it can get to me and anyone can test it. Or you can have any one user where we know someone's going to be on vacation that week. It's like perfect. Karen from down the hall, she'll approve it for me. That's perfect. We can keep things moving. Don't have any issues. And there is actually a time limit. So you can actually set yourself. So after 30 days here, my change to go to production will actually be removed if it doesn't get approved within that time limit that you have set.
The one thing that we found, and I know we didn't talk about it this morning, but let's see how good we do with this one.
All right.
One thing that we found is that if you're making a modification to your release and you want that release to go, but there's already something waiting for approval, you cannot move on to your next release until you deny the approval of the previous one. So if you feel like you're stuck and it looks like you're supposed to be able to approve it, but there's not a button there for you to do it, check your previous releases and make sure that something isn't stuck in the dev stage that you have to deny before moving on to the next one.
And you can even see that too. So if I actually go back to releases down here, I can actually see out here to see if there's anything being held up. It'll typically give you like a blue check mark as that prod is still waiting for changes to go live in order for you to continue on with any of the other builds that you're waiting for it to get pushed to production.
Yeah, we'll show you that when we actually perform the build a little later.
Yep.
For the approvals, I think I saw this, but you can set up a group, right, to approve.
Yeah, you can also do a group as
It's like a
well.
whole change management group or something.
Yep.
Okay.
So just individual users.
Is that at the project level, or is that where those users come from? Those approvals.
I believe they're from the project level that I set up.
They're from the project.
So they have to be members of that project.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. So I know on the left side you have organizations, and then some of the projects at the hierarchy.
Yep.
I don't know if there's like an overall, someone that does at the whole organizational level.
They would have to be included in the project.
In the project,
to perform the approvals.
All right.
As of today. because you know Azure's changing tomorrow.
I think another release tonight.
All right.
Great. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to one job, one task now. So we can actually go through this process right here. So this is the step that we actually created before for deploying. So this is the DAC pack that we created for deploying. You have down here with the deploy SQL using SQL DAC pack. So right here we got some actual variables that we're going to be going through, like the database name here, the SQL username, and SQL password. A lot of this stuff can actually be found up here in the variables. So you can actually go out here and you can select your pipeline variables or your variable groups, and you can actually set ahead of time your database name, database projects, based on the location that they are. So you can actually look at the releases and separate them that way as well.
Notice the scope on the right. We have a dev and prod stage, but we also have a release. Well, the release kind of goes along with all the stages. So if you have a variable name that you set as a scope of release, then no matter what stage you're in, it'll use that variable name. However, if you have something that's specific for prod and dev, like a username and password that you don't want to be sharing between the two environments, that's where you would have dev and prod specific variables. And you can add however many you need here in order to make your deployments a little bit more configurable.
So I'm going to go back down here to tests, go back to dev to where we were working. I'm going to go back to this deploy using DAC pack. So this is what we set up here. So we have the display name set up here, the deploy SQL using. We have the DAC pack file, specify the SQL using, server name, database name. We're getting everything set up here to what we're pulling in, along with pulling in our published profile that we created ahead of time.
Notice the deployment environment variable that we used here, because we have a prod.adventureworks.dw.publish.xml. We also have a dev. And so if you look back to the variables for dev, it's called dev, and for prod, it's called prod. It'll fill in that right one so that we use the correct published profile for the environment that we're deploying to.
Is there another test you want to show on this one, or do you want to go through a test run of me making the change now?
I think we're ready for a test run. I'm excited.
All right, let's do our
See if it
release.
works.
So we're going to go in here to the builds. So I went out here ahead of time. I'm working in our database project for VentureWorks DW that Bob and I created ahead of time. We got this new table out here called Azure DevOps. This is just in this project right now, and I'm going to be creating a new column. I'm going to be adding out here. I'm going to be like, all right. I'm going to, of course we have issues now. Go here and I'm going to call it FoxPass rules. All right. So go out here and I'm going to save this off. Then go back on Team Explorer. Oh no.
The really nice thing about Azure is how fast it is.
Right?
Still connected. It'll get there.
It's a bummer. I had everything.
All right, well, that's loading. Are there any questions on anything that we've covered so far?
At what point does the DBA review the DAC pack? I mean, I didn't know there's like, go ahead and deploy the prod, I don't care.
Is that, well, it depends on your process, right? So if the DBA is supposed to review the DAC pack, what are they exactly reviewing it against? Are you creating a script, or are they just validating that particular objects that you said were going to get deployed out there and deployed?
Like in that approval stage, what do people see? Do they see, what are they approving? What are they looking at to say, yeah, I approve this?
So typically the approval would be like a QA step. So once it's deployed to dev, or say a test environment, then you would have your QA staff would have access to perform that approval. So they would actually go out there and test the features that you've developed and say, yeah, that feature actually does work, whatever the number of features that are in the particular feature set that you've merged in the master. And once they approve that, then they move it forward. Incidentally, if you have that sort of an approval process, it's really good to have fast development turnaround on features. You can't, Like if you're developing 10 features in 2 weeks and you got to now wait for those 10 features to be QA'd, it's going to take a while. By then you might have another 2 or 3 features that you want to check in. So it is about fast iteration when you're developing, when you're using an approval process across your environments. So there is that environment promotion process, which is kind of what we're demonstrating here. And then there's also what I would call isolated feature development, where you would then promote the feature to the different branches that you are committing the changes to, and then you could take that feature and then merge that feature into the next branch. Let's say if you're using Git, but then it's a feature-based kind of a promotion rather than promoting across the pipeline. So this one is more for fast development.
They'd also be able to see the code too, obviously.
Right.
So the approver, in addition to testing everything, they can go in and see what the actual database schema is and any changes you make.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you do have a DBA team that also has to approve whatever you're promoting to production, a good idea when you're creating that DAC script is to run it against a production-like environment that generates a script, and then you can show that script to a DBA team. But that's more of a kind of a process conversation than it is a DevOps conversation.
Question there. Yep. As this kind of methodology is becoming more prevalent, are you starting to see that line blur between a true DBA and a DevOps developer, or those skill sets are becoming more merged?
It's a
on
team.
a team.
It's a team. So they become more of a part of a team. There is no DBA team over here. Then this development team has to constantly go and tell them what they're doing. DBAs, developers, they all are sitting in the same room, working on the same thing, talking to each other every day, understanding exactly what's going on. So there's still that separation. The roles still exist. It's just now they're working more closely together than they have in the past.
Any other questions? I'm about to push it. So as soon as I do this, it's going to do the build right
Things
away.
are going to happen really fast.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go here.
Fireworks and bells and whistles.
That's right. Number one thing we don't.
All right, so he successfully pushed that to master, which happens to be the line that we're monitoring. So now we go over to builds, we see now there's a build that's in progress. Jess is going to click on that, and you should see again, it's initializing that agent like we spoke about, and it's going to now start walking through all the steps. So they're checking out, so it does have to check out the code in the repository to make sure that it has the latest changes, and then it's starting to build out the project. It seemed like when I was talking before this went really fast, and I had nothing to say. It's going extremely slow.
Happens every time.
That's pretty cool.
So now what you'll see is as this is going through, all of a sudden this will stop, the artifacts will be there, but we're not going to show you the artifacts because right away the deployment is going to pick up, and Josh is going to click over to that just so you can see a little bit about the release that is going to be available. And then we'll also show you the approval process when we get to that point. So the build is done. Now we're on that release. You can see, there we go.
It's right
The
there.
release has already been scheduled.
It's right here. It's getting queued. Now it's in progress. Download the artifact. I'm using Backpack.
So the 3 tasks, notice we only have one, right? It was the backpack deployment. So 3 tasks speaks to that agent again, where it's spinning up that agent, it's performing the deployment, and then it's turning that agent back down. So it's probably in the process of reallocating that agent.
For now, it's succeeded. Now I went out here to the pending approval, so I'm going to go to here and double check my change. So all my changes went out. Go down to my databases, go down to AdventureWorks 2017. I created that new table for Azure DevOps. can go out here and I can see the columns, FoxPass rules, and Azure DevOps. Look at that. Everything was deployed successfully. And just to prove a point, also I'm going to go out here to production. I'm going to go out here, go to 2017, look out here at the tables. Okay, my table's not out here. I don't have my changes yet. What the heck's going on? I got to wait for everything to get approved.
That's right.
Bob? Come on, Bob.
Oh, it's still in QA?
Yeah, Bob didn't
No
approve
wonder.
it. So I'm going to bring up my email right here. You can actually see both Bob and myself are going to be getting an actual email that's going to be letting us know, hey, everything's been has been completed. Something's waiting up here for you right now for your database projects.
There you go.
Right here.
Because that's where you want all these emails to go in the other, because it's not important. Or that you need to approve things.
Will this notification show up in DevOps for you also?
It will,
Okay.
yes.
So I can go out here and be like, all right, what does this guy want? Hey, Josh, all right, he's a pretty cool guy. Let's check out his view approval. So I'm going to go out here.
So if we go, I think this will take you to the page
This
that
will
shows
actually-
you all of the releases. Actually,
There
can we go
goes
there
through.
before you approve, just so
Yep.
they can see what that looks like?
Yeah, I definitely can. All right, so I'm going to go out here. I'm going to go down to back to the releases. Okay.
So there's what that pending approval looks like. You'll see that blue. If you're like on release 24 and you're wondering why I can't approve that to go to production, look for blue further down in the releases. And then you can go into there and you can either approve or deny it, and then follow that all the way up the chain until you get to the point where you're ready to release the one that you actually want to go to production.
Right. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to approve this guy's
Oh,
hardware.
nervous.
All right.
Going live. Come on.
Going live. You can either defer the deployment for later, you can view the logs, you can actually approve it. So I'm going to approve it here. Now it's going to get queued again, it's going to get ready to deploy and now to production.
Well, keep in mind, the reason that has to get queued is we now released that agent already. It's because it deployed to dev, that agent's done. So now we got to queue it, which means now we're waiting for that agent to spin back up, allow us to perform our deployment, and then deallocate it again. And why it says it's on task 3 or 3 here, I don't know. I don't believe it. I'm sure that the backpack deployment takes a lot longer than deallocating an agent.
It's like when you see 99% of something to download for like an hour, you're like, come on. There we go. Got it deployed. So I'm going to go out here and I'm out in the production environment, be like, yeah, changes are all good, guys. Take a look. Go out here. Yep, look at that. He did it.
Oops.
New columns are out here, FoxPass rules and Azure DevOps. So we're able to deploy our actual table out here for VentureWorks 2017.
Now that that's done, we go home and get a good night's rest. Nobody's going to call us.
Yeah.
Application's done.
Right.
DVA sure to get a phone call the rest of the day.
We're good to go. Why wouldn't you deploy at 8 o'clock at night? All right.
Go back.
I think that's it.
That's, yeah,
You happy?
I am very happy.
All right. I am too. I think that's good.
Bring it back up. And with that, we just want to say we hope we learned quite a bit now with Azure DevOps. You get a little bit of an idea of how it works, how you can actually set up releases and builds, so you can actually have it so it's automated. You can have things a lot easier, flow a lot better. You can set up approvals. We actually learned quite a bit when working through this. We can definitely see a lot of growth that we can see within Azure DevOps, and it's also going to continue to grow. If you have any questions or further questions, definitely reach out to both Bob and myself. If you want, you can either email us, you can grab one of our business cards, and you can actually see the demo here that we use for the VentureWorks data warehouse. In the comments here, after this meetup, I'm going to put the YAML out there so you can actually download it and you can actually recreate it for yourself. And then if you want, you can also look at other Azure DevOps presentations from the previous SQL Saturday that Bob was a part of.
That VentureWorks CW demo here is the one that's available for you to use that should coincide with our deployment. So You do have to go to SQL Saturday site for that. We're not going to post that here, although maybe a link.
Yeah, we can at least do a link.
So, all right, and thank you guys for coming. It's
Yeah.
really a pleasure hanging out with you guys and showing you some tech.
Yeah. Hope you guys learned something.
That was good.
If you don't have any specific questions, you can feel free to keep thinking on. Please at least take a moment to fill out your surveys that you're going to find on your desk. And then I will go around and collect them. They're useful to us both as a critique for our speakers and then also for future topics you might want to see covered.
Yes. The other thing is we know a bunch about all of Azure DevOps. So if you want to talk about repositories, you want to talk about projects, please give us a call, get in contact with us. We'd love to show you more and give you a kind of a full tour of the whole DevOps, Azure DevOps suite.
You recommend like a one repo per project, or what would be the just? Well, why would we have two repos in one project? That's it. How do you divide it out?